Talking points.
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 Talking points. Talking points.
Talking points.
Welcome to Talking Points. Talking Points is a program in which we look more closely at recent topics from Today River Valley, the video news feature program for the towns of the Androscoggin Valley in Maine. I'm Phil Blampede, the host and producer of both programs, and with me today are Aronka Matolchi and Steve White. We're coming to you from Bistro 151, a continental-style restaurant in the historic Sudbury Inn on Main Street in Bethel. This is the January 2016 edition. Hello, Aronka.
Hi, Phil. Thanks for having me.
Hello, Steve.
Hi, glad to be here.
Let's explain a little bit about who we are. A Western Maine native, Aronka Matolchi has followed in the footsteps of her parents to dedicate much of her life to supporting artists and developing the arts for cultural, educational, and economic enrichment in Maine. A graduate of the Boston Conservatory for Music, Dance, and Theater, she is the former executive director of the Mahoosic Arts Council in Bethel, Maine, and the Western Maine Art Group in Norway, Maine, which was founded in 1962 by her parents. Steve White, retired after 38 years operating Sunday River Inn and Cross Country Ski Center with his wife Peggy, served 34 years as a selectman in the town of Newry and 23 years as a commissioner on the Maine Land Use Regulation Commission. Steve now serves on the boards of many local, statewide, and regional nonprofit organizations, working in areas including youth wellness, conservation, recreation, education, forest health, and community resilience. As for me, Phil Blampede, I launched the video feature show Today River Valley 3 years ago. It started on the internet and eventually got region-wide placement on WPME TV. My idea was to take the kind of community journalism found in local newspapers and translate it into a video program. Not only can you find the program on WPME, but you can watch it at any time at todayrivervalley.com. Talking Points is sponsored by the Sudbury Inn on Main Street in Bethel, Maine.
Make the Sudbury Inn your headquarters for your next trip to Bethel. Centrally located downtown, this charming 19th century inn offers accommodations from a full apartment with its own fireplace to deluxe two-room suites to single rooms. And you don't have to go far to find the best of Bethel, with fine dining in our main dining room, pub fare and live music in our popular Suds pub, and a bistro menu and bar in Bistro 151, which features light fare with a creative flair, lobster ravioli with a shrimp cream sauce, sweet pea and caramelized onion ravioli with a blue cheese sauce, blackened sea bass with a cucumber salsa, citrus glazed veal short ribs with an Asian sauce. The Sudbury Inn is family-friendly, can accommodate pets, and as the magazine Bon Appetit put it, is the perfect way to end a day in Bethel. Call today for more information.
All right, let's get started. In a recent edition of Today River Valley, there was a story about the moose calling contest that took place at the Maine State Moose Lottery, which was held here in Bethel last June. The Moose Lottery is a process by which the state regulates how many moose are hunted out each year, and people have to buy lottery tickets and attend an event where some of the tickets are chosen and the lucky winners get to buy an actual moose hunting permit. This is a way of controlling the moose herd and the extent of the hunt, but the question that I have is this the best way to do it? Wouldn't it be simpler just to limit the moose hunting season?
Right, there is a big part of fundraising involved in this because the Department of Inland Fish and Wildlife has to fund itself through its license sales. They don't get tax money like from the general fund. So this lottery system works for them, but beyond that,
well, let's stop there though. It's a moneymaker for them. You have to pay $15 to buy a lottery ticket, and then if you win, you have to pay again, right?
That's right. Yep.
So that's
Seems quite fair for the privilege of being able to come into the Maine woods and have a chance at a kind of game as the Maine Moose.
In fact, there are a few permits, 10 or so, that are held out for a nationwide auction, and in that case, people will pay $25,000, $30,000 for one of the tickets to be able to come and shoot a moose.
Now, you feel that this is the most logical way to control the population of hunters. You feel that there would be difficulty, there'd be too many people in the woods if you didn't limit the number of permits right from the start.
Well, yeah, the whole animal management system, wildlife management system in the state is pretty amazing. And there are biologists who look after each species of game animal and determine how many there are around, what the population of the animals is, and what the ideal population should be, and based on that they determine how many need to be harvested each year. So the biologists have decided for this particular season, the 2015 season, which has just concluded, that they would like to harvest 2,700 or so moose. And so they put out around 2,700, 2,800 moose permits, and there are 50,000 people that would like to have one of those permits. So somehow you have to figure out which of those 50,000 are the lucky winners of the tickets, and this seems to be a good way to do it. It does help the department, but the recent type of activity that's taken place around the lottery has really benefited, as Aranka said, benefited the town that sponsors it, that holds it greatly.
Well, to that point, the idea that bringing the lottery to a specific community is going to bring thousands of people to that community who will then go and shop and provide a significant economic boon to that town. Is that really how it works out? And did it work out that way in Bethel this year?
I think that there were some differing experiences. As a nonprofit, as a representative of a nonprofit that was on the venue, meeting the people that were attending the event, it was definitely beneficial for us. We were able to advertise our mission, seek potential donors. We were able to raise funds for our organization, as were many other community organizations that were at the venue with us. I understand that there were perhaps businesses that were off the venue that didn't feel as though the influx of visitors to town was as beneficial as they had anticipated, and to that I would say to engage those people a little bit more and to work in conjunction with some nonprofits where things like reciprocal coupons could be given. So you visit a nonprofit on the venue and you get a coupon to get something off at a local store. So I definitely think there are ways around and ways to build on the experience of each town, and as the lottery moves around to different towns, organizations like the Bethel Area Nonprofit Collaborative, of which I'm sure many members were part of the lottery event, could share their experiences to help benefit other communities and to help maximize the potential economic benefit as well as social benefit to the community. There's
also a marketing notion that you have to figure out, which was lost on some of us this time around. These people that came particularly to be there for the drawing, and there were a lot of other people who came just because it was an event. But the people who came for the drawing were really a different type of folk than we've seen in town in quite a while, and it was really neat to be able to introduce the town to them. But in the case of my Rotary Club, for instance, we decided that we would serve fruit cup. Well, I want to tell you that moose hunters are not really fruit cup people.
One of the subsidiary events was a moose calling contest. Okay, so let's take a look at something that took place during the moose calling contest. It was an attempt to set a Guinness Book of World Records record on the largest number of people making a moose call at one time.
I'll bet they did it.
Well, they probably did it. They probably succeeded in setting the record, but I've checked the Guinness website, and it hasn't shown up yet, so I don't know whether they considered it valid or not.
It takes it a while to get on there.
It does?
Yeah.
So you think sooner or later we'll...
Yeah, Bethel's had that experience a couple times with the snow woman and the snowman, and after a while, there's a big deal when it finally is determined that they're a winner. You get a plaque to hang on the wall.
Talking Points. We'll be right back.
The thing about Pat's Pizza is that it's informal, but the food is really good. It's not just pizza. They make their own dough there, they make their own lasagna there, and it's a very comfortable place. You go in and it's a rustic post and beam interior. Portions are incredibly generous. Staff is friendly. You know, I like trying the microbrews. They have a selection of microbrews at the bar. They have a 6-page menu. It's you have to think a while before you make a choice. They have gluten-free specialties, including gluten-free carrot cake. They've been there for nearly 2 decades, and I think there's a reason why. It's a very pleasant place to find some really good food in a comfortable environment.
Pat's Pizza, it's not just pizza. Visit us soon on Route 2 in Bethel. Call ahead for takeout at 824-3637 and like us on Facebook.
Excuse me, sir. Are you getting a little shaggy around the ears but can't find time for a haircut? Well, now you can. At Lisa's Barbershop, now open at 178 Main Street in Mexico, owner Lisa Cormier specializes in quick haircuts. No appointment is necessary and there's rarely a wait. At Lisa's, our motto is cut and go.
Hi, President's Day is coming. Some people have hair that looks like George Washington. Some people have hair that looks like Abraham Lincoln. And some people have hair that looks like Dwight Eisenhower. No matter what your hair looks like, I can give you a quick, stylish cut at Lisa's Barbershop.
At Lisa's, all adult haircuts are $11, kids 10 and under are $8, and remember, kids get to pick a prize from the toy box. Open Tuesday to Friday, 8:30 to 5, Saturday 9 to noon.
At Dan's Automotive, you'll find reliable used cars priced from $3,000 up. You'll get more car for less money. These are brands that are known for their reliability and long life, and each is mechanically updated, even including new timing belts when needed. Cars come with state inspection and 14-day plates. Come browse the lot at 625 Crescent Avenue in Rumford and grab your car before somebody else does.
We bought our car at Dan's, and we're glad we did.
Dan's Automotive Repair and Sales, 625 Crescent Avenue, Rumford, Maine, 369-9302.
Talking Points is sponsored by the Sudbury Inn on Main Street in Bethel, Maine.
In another recent edition, we had a story about Howard Pond in Hanover, Maine, which is quite an interesting place with a very interesting history. Howard Pond has an outfall that goes 400 feet down to the Androscoggin River, and with the force of gravity, that outfall during the 19th century provided water power for numerous factories and water-powered mills. During that time, Howard Pond was essentially the manufacturing center of this part of Maine. There was a settlement of farmers up above the mills around the shores of Howard Pond. And in the 1860s, that settlement got hit by an epidemic of diphtheria that was so severe that it decimated the population, and eventually all the residents evacuated. I wanted to ask you folks, what do you think? Is there a possibility that diphtheria is still a problem for us? And could something like that happen again today?
Well, with diphtheria in particular, you can be tested for its presence in your blood system, and you can be inoculated at just about any healthcare facility in Maine. And it can also be easily treated with emycin and penicillin. And I happen to know this because I'm a mother of a 4.5-year-old and I've been faced with having to make some hard decisions about what vaccinations that we want to allow while listening to very differing viewpoints on either side of the issue. As a researcher by trade and by recreation, it's something that was easy for me to delve into. And frankly, the most credible research shows that inoculations are critical to maintaining our immunity as in community as well as around the world.
So did you opt for the diphtheria vaccine?
For my son, yes. However, we did choose not to have, say, for example, hepatitis B. There are certain vaccinations that aren't necessary, but others that we believe are. And so there is validity to both sides of the argument, but there needs to really kind of be a communication in the balance that makes parents who feel that this is a real danger zone and it can cause a multitude of different health defects or syndromes, that there needs to be, really balanced and rational conversation and thinking about it. There are some that really aren't necessary. Hepatitis B is one that's given to communities that are high risk, to prostitutes and people that are doing IV drugs. That's certainly not something that most women in this community are doing and need to deal with.
Healthcare workers routinely get hepatitis B because they may be exposed to bloodborne pathogens, including
Right.
hepatitis B. So nurses and EMTs and even CNAs. So that's
Certainly people, there are risk communities. However, mine and most of my peers weren't in a risk community that would require having our children vaccinated for hepatitis B. However, when we're talking about things like pertussis, that's a very serious and present disease in our community.
Well, now the diphtheria vaccine is usually bundled with the pertussis vaccine. So did you choose, and it's usually bundled with, or can be bundled with tetanus, pertussis, and diphtheria
Yes.
in a 3-in-1 vaccine. Did you opt for that
Yes.
3-in-1? Well, the interesting thing is you can now get these vaccines over the counter at Walgreens.
Really?
And they have a price
That
list.
seems dangerous, actually. That seems like it could be a very dangerous thing to do. That would be like over-the-counter antibiotics.
Yeah, well, apparently they feel it's safe because I'm sure that Walgreens has vetted the liability on everything they do. I'm sure even you walk through the door, the shape of the door is set up so to minimize lawsuits. So
Back to Howard Pond. What was it about Howard Pond that happened to be the place where diphtheria was a big problem?
I honestly don't know. Diphtheria is airborne. It's not like a toxin in the soil or it's toxin in the water. If it were a waterborne illness, you might say it was something having to do with the environment. It was probably just the human ecology that somebody walked in.
Somebody brought it into the community. Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that within 30 years of Howard Pond being depopulated, people began to move back in as vacationers, which I thought was kind of interesting. You wonder whether somebody might pause before moving into an area where everybody died off only a few decades before, but didn't seem to bother them. They moved in and it became quite a popular vacation pond.
30 years looking back doesn't seem like much, but 30 years living through it probably seemed like an eternity for people who were only going to live to 40 or 50 anyway, so probably thought that was long, long ago.
Well, the interesting thing about this combination vaccine is that if you step on a nail, you might think you need a tetanus shot. So if you go to Walgreens, it's cheaper just to get a tetanus shot and not to get the bundled shot. It's $45 more or less for tetanus, $55 for tetanus and pertussis, and $65 for all three. So somebody might look for the discount and just get the tetanus shot. But they say that you need to renew the diphtheria immunization every 10 years. And are you guys?
I doubt people do that. I mean, I don't remember a doctor ever asking me if I was up to date on my diphtheria shot.
Well, all right.
I actually have been updated because of some construction activities around building my chicken coop and some rusty nails.
Yep. That's usually why people get them.
But I was asked if I wanted the combination.
Right.
And I would think that anybody who has health insurance or is covered on a state health plan would be able to receive that vaccination for free.
Well, pertussis is, they're now just talking about pertussis being a concern. Apparently that is not that uncommon.
There are lots of things, since people have been questioning whether they needed to have their children immunized, that Veronica spoke to, measles and all sorts of things are coming back again. The Rotary Club, again, has been involved since 1985 in getting rid of polio in the world. And we're down to 2 countries, but those countries are Pakistan and Afghanistan, a little difficult to work in. And but it only takes somebody going across the border to another country to start it all over again. So it's real tricky to get rid of them once it starts again. So it's best that if you have eradicated it, that you continue the being observant and about the need for.
Well, I think it may very well be that the supply of rusty nails in the United States will keep us immunized against diphtheria, too. There was only one case of diphtheria in 2013 in the United States.
The only reason that diphtheria has anything to do with rusty nails is that it's the 3-part shot.
Right.
I didn't realize that.
I would say, to the parents who are considering whether they need to inoculate their children or not. I understand why there's a lot of suspicion about whether inoculating children is valid or not. And it is so unfortunate that a bogus report came out of the UK in the mid-90s that was during a time that a lot of people were finding out about contaminated food supply, contaminated pet food supply, and other things that gave people a real suspicion about whether what they were being given was good for them and good for their children or not. So I understand the frenzy, the hysteria that really was created around that one report. However, it's been debunked by a multitude of credible medical research organizations that have proven beyond a doubt that what was proposed there was absolute untruth. And that unfortunately caused a lot of children to not be protected and to have inadvertently started these diseases back into their community.
Talking points. We'll be right back.
So come on in. Let us open new doors for you. After all, we are the people-pleasing agency serving all your real estate needs.
In October, there was a feature in Today River Valley about the Celtic music concert series that's taking place in the Green Church in Mexico, Maine. The story focused on the fact that the Green Church was an unusual venue for such a series, and it focused on the nobility, I guess you could say, of the effort to have a continuing music concert series in a community that doesn't have the greatest population base and is a place that might be a little difficult in which to attract an audience. And in fact, the Celtic music series has had some sold-out events, sold-out performances, but it's also had some performances where there are only a handful of people in the audience. This, I think, illustrates, in a sense, the difficulty of performance art of any kind, whether it be a play, a concert, anything, in an area that isn't as populated as an urban area is. And I'm wondering what this might say about the future of performance art in an area like this, in less populated areas of the United States. Are people so glued to their television and computer screens that you just can't get them out to a public event anymore? What do you think, Araka?
Absolutely not. As the former director of the Mahoosic Arts Council, I was a presenter of live performing arts for 7 years, and also in my work before that, I was a presenter of live performing arts. And I've seen the lengths that people will go to get to a performance that interests them. We have attracted people from all over the state for some of the performances that we've presented, and they run the gamut of things like aerial circus arts to local or a statewide documentary on the logging history of Maine, to big band from Boston, to Katie and Cloggers. So we've seen a full house drawn out of the woods of Maine and the small communities of Maine on nights where it's snowing and sleeting and raining, and they're coming because this is something important to them. And however, there are other times that we're presenting material that doesn't have the same draw. And it always causes us to question, well, are we doing the right thing by bringing this to the community? And I say absolutely yes. However, when we're talking about the Celtic music series, or the Celtic Music Series at the Green Church and the Celtic music presence in Western Maine, that's very much due to the passion and the ability of one man, and that's Phil McIntyre, the founder of the Sky Theatre. Phil being behind the Celtic music scene is very much why it's successful here. Because honestly, the council did our best with a Celtic series. We think that we were not at the greatest time period on the calendar because it was during the summer when a lot of people were busy. However, Phil was still filling his house the night after.
Well, let me play devil's advocate. Do you think in middle America, so to speak, that the only way to get people to a performance is to have local people on stage who'll get all their relatives to come and sit in the audience?
Oh, absolutely not.
I don't think it's the only way, but it's certainly one way. I mean, and you can overdo it, but all the towns that I've seen that have their hee-haw shows or various things, you know, play to a full house because people want to go see their neighbors play. So that's one side of this. The other side is what Phil was doing, bringing the New York and Boston shows here midweek, and people. There's an underground of people who like Celtic music, who, as you say, will go to the ends of the earth to get to it.
Well, also look at the other live performance venues in the community. There's Deer Trees Theater, regularly sold out. There's the Celebration Barn Theater, regularly sold out. And then you have the Oxford Hills Music and Performing Arts Association that does unbelievably beautifully produced shows at the upstairs in the Norway Grange. Sold out. If you don't get your tickets well in advance, you're not going to get in.
Are those local people, though?
Absolutely.
But
the Celebration Barn are not local, and Deer Trees are not local. So we're talking about three different, very different.
49 Franklin does.
And 49 Franklin, and the Brick Church Center for the Performing Arts in Lovell. Although I'm not as familiar with their program calendar and what their attendance is, but certainly they are part of a very abundant and growing network of live performance centers.
I think the more people that we have that retire to this area from more urban centers, the more interest there is too in attending and supporting those kinds of activities.
Well, certainly, and this area has a long history of attracting people from urban areas and other areas where there's plentiful options in really great culture, and there's a desire to have it here as well. And when the railroad was bringing people up from New York, Connecticut, and Boston, all of a sudden there were small chamber festivals that were popping up, weekend choir groups that were performing, and residents that were funding notable performers from the city to come up and perform. And hence, really, the birth of the Deer Trees Theater is a result of that. And then just the inherent beauty of the lakes and mountain, it attracts people to recreate. And while they're recreating, they'd like to see great music and have a really quality cultural experience. So that's one of the reasons we're so fortunate to have so many theaters.
Talking points.
Well, that's it for this month's edition of Talking Points. Watch this time slot next week for this month's edition of Today River Valley. Until that time, from all of us here at Talking Points, stay well, stay warm, and see you next month.
Talking Points is sponsored by the Sudbury Inn, and this program came from Bistro 151 in the Sudbury Inn on Main Street in Bethel, Maine. Call 207-824-2174 for information or reservations at the Sudbury Inn. The Sudbury Inn, the perfect way to end a day in Bethel.
Talking points.
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 Talking points. Talking points.
Talking points.